Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Derek Carr retires, folks. That's right. Medically retires. We have to put that emphasis in there. Medically retires. Justin Tucker is released. Matthew Stafford's contract details are finally revealed. Shemart Stewart is holding out of rookie minicamp, as well as did Nico Iamaleava make the right decision from leaving Tennessee and going to UCLA, as well as should rookies be allowed to wear legends numbers? And the White House is cutting traumatic brain injury education and research funding. And to put the cherry on top, folks, draft grades for the AFC North, okay? All of this and more on the 77th episode of the Football Junkies podcast, okay? I am your host with the most, okay? I am your GM who currently is not on the team right now, but don't you worry about it, okay? Because don't you worry your little junkie head about it, because guess what? I am still in the league. I'm still giving my opinion on various moves that are being made behind closed doors, okay? Because guess what? I am your chief Bagrodamus. Anything and everything related to the bag and more. Projections, mock drafts, new contract details, all those things and more. Guess what? We cover that over here at the Football Junkies podcast, because guess what? I am all these things and more. But most importantly, the most important thing that you must remember is I am your host, Kale. You already know how these episodes are about to go. It's going to get a little bit crazy. It's going to be a lot of conspiracy theories. I got my tinfoil hat on today. So guess what? Let's get this stir pot going. 1, 2, 3. Let's lock in. All right, folks, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything that is going on in the league right now. So, man, we have a lot to talk about. So, Derek Carr has medically retired. Man, if I would have told you this would have happened now, I would have called you a liar. But it has happened. So, the Saints have put out a press release I think we need to really talk about. So, here goes. In that quote, in late March, while ramping up his preparation for the 2025 season, Derek experienced pain in his right shoulder. It was his first time throwing a football at significant volume since recovering from both a concussion and left hand injury during play on December 8th, 2024. Derek immediately contacted the Saints medical team. Eventually, medical scans determined objectively that Derek sustained a lateral tear and also had significant degenerative changes to his rotator cuff, which is actually really not that good, honestly. Since that time, Derek, his representation, the Saints medical team, and outside medical experts have worked together to determine the best path forward. Surgery was an option, jeopardizing the entire 2025 season. Yet there was no guarantee Derek will return to the level of strength, function, and performance of play to which he was accustomed to. Upon consultation with his wife, Heather, Derek has decided it is in the best interest of his family and the Saints organization to retire from the National Football League. Now, here is the statement that Derek Carr put out himself, and I quote, "Upon reflection of prayer and in discussion with Heather, I've decided to retire from the National Football League. For more than 11 years, we have been incredibly blessed, and we are forever grateful and humbled by this experience. It's difficult to find the right words to express our thanks to all the teammates, coaches, team officials, and especially the fans who made this journey so special. Your unwavering support has meant the world to us, Derek Carr," end quote. My takeaway with this is Derek Carr never had stability within his career. And let me explain why. Your first head coach was Jack Del Rio from 2015 to 2017, then John Gruden from 2018 to 2021, then Josh McDaniels from 2022 to 2023, and then Antonio Pierce from 2023 to 2024, and then you go to the Saints, Dennis Allen from 2023, and then you retired this year. You have not had a lot of stability in your career. And with all of those coaches, you've gone through a lot of change within the offenses as well. So you've never really had no real stability. And quarterbacks need stability. We have all seen the difference in careers when a quarterback does have stability and when they don't have stability. Not to mention, we also have to factor in that had he went through with this surgery It was not a guarantee that he was going to return to the same Derek Carr of old. It literally said that in the press release, and I quote, surgery was an option, jeopardizing the entire 2025 season. Yet, there was no guarantee Derek would return to the level of strength, function, and performance of play to which he was accustomed. That's a 50-50 chance. I don't think Derek Carr really wants to take that at this point in his career. Now, if he was a little bit younger, maybe. I think he would take that risk. But at this point, why take that risk now, where it could potentially jeopardize your life outside of football? When we look at his stats for his final season, 279 attempts for 189 completions, 15 touchdowns, 2,145 passing yards, 5 picks, 7.7 yards per attempt, and a 67.7 completion percentage. I think we also have to factor in that at some point Derek Carr was definitely going to be moved. Anytime a new head coach is hired, the old regime completely will be gone. From the quarterback to anybody that does not fit the vision of the new head coach and their regime is going to be gone. Now, granted, a quarterback specifically can hold off on that decision if they're still very productive. But Derek Carr, on the other hand, has not been very productive since being with the Saints. And so I feel like for the new regime, I feel like it was an easier move to make than to just say, okay, yeah, we're going to roll with, with Derek Carr and just see how this goes. No. Leading up to the draft, I was definitely under the impression that they were going to draft a quarterback. And the reason why I say that is because quarterback was a definite need. The last time that they drafted a quarterback within the first round was Arch Manning. That was the last time. And since then, they have never drafted a quarterback in the first round. So I say all that to say this. Derek Carr, enjoy the fruits of your labor. But we do have to stir the pot a little bit. Because Kellen Moore did say, if I'm not mistaken, on Saturday, that they were going to have an open competition between Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shough. Sure, that's good, but at the same time, you're probably going to want a veteran quarterback to lead the quarterback room. Now, the only two people that are available, technically speaking, quote unquote, well, actually three, if you want to add that person in there as well, is Carson Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, and Kirk Cousins. Now, we all know with the Kirk Cousins situation, he has already said he does not want to go anywhere where he does not have a chance of playing. Whereas Aaron Rodgers, he's a free agent, so you can have open dialogue with him. You can have open dialogue with Carson Wentz as well. But let's be real here. Out of all those three, who do you think is really going to move the needle significantly? I don't think Kirk Cousins will. I don't think Aaron Rodgers will. And I don't think Carson Wentz will. Now, they could do one of two things. They can roll with this young core, see what happens, and then next year they can make a decision to draft a quarterback. Or they can bring in a veteran, case in point, Aaron Rodgers or Carson Wentz or Kirk Cousins, and just see what happens. Now, with the whole Kirk Cousins conundrum, you will have to give away assets and resources in order to obtain Kirk Cousins. Whereas Aaron Rodgers, he's already said he'll play for $10 million. Carson Wentz, I really don't know what he really wants to do at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires as well. But if you were to take the route with Aaron Rodgers, I think it would benefit both parties because why? For one, you would have the second best quarterback in your division, and not to mention, you will be able to compete with the Buccaneers. Because right now, the Falcons are still trying to find their way, as well as the Panthers. So it's really between the Saints and the Buccaneers. So I think if you get Aaron Rodgers, I think it would benefit both sides, especially for Aaron, because why? You will be in a situation where you're in a warm climate, and you probably won't have to go anywhere cold until probably the early part of the season, which is still great because all the colder spots will still be fairly warm. So I say all that to say this. I think they're probably going to make a move at quarterback around training camp, excuse me. I think that's when they're going to make a significant move at quarterback, depending on what happens between these three. Because I think Jake Haener is probably Quarterback number 3, I think Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck, I think they have a real chance to be either quarterback 1 or quarterback 2. Now, me personally, I think Spencer Rattler may have the advantage than Tyler Shuck. But only time will tell. Now let's get into this whole Justin Tucker situation because it low-key is a very sad situation. But before we get there, we do have somewhat of breaking news with Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson just put out a statement to ESPN just a few minutes ago, and this is what it says, and I quote, "No communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level. Coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. I have been eagerly waiting a resolution of this situation, but that's hard to do when there's no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals," end quote. That is somebody that is pissed off. That is somebody that is tired of playing the waiting game. That is somebody that is just tired of just this runaround with the organization. Bengals, you have someone that is one of the best pass rushers in the entire league. You have to compensate him for that. You did it with Joe Burrow, no problem. You did it with Jamar Chase, no problem. You did it with T. Higgins, no problem. You have to take care of Trey Hendrickson. If you do not take care of Trey Hendrickson, you will not have a defense. It's already bad enough that Shemart Stewart and Demetrius Knight are not participating in rookie minicamp. But if you lose Trey Hendrickson, that is it. Because I guarantee you right now, there are teams that are licking their chops at wanting to get somebody like a Trey Hendrickson. They'll deal with the whole contract conundrum later. Adding someone like a Trey Hendrickson would be an instant upgrade for a majority of defensive lines. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles are still sniffing around with this. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions are sniffing around this. I would not be surprised if there are teams within the AFC that are also interested in Trey Hendrickson. Stay tuned for that because I feel like there will be a resolution soon with this whole conundrum. But back to the whole Ravens situation. So Justin Tucker was released and they quoted it as a football decision. And I quote, "Sometimes football decisions are incredibly difficult and this is one of those instances. Considering our current roster, we have made the tough decision to release Justin Tucker. Justin created many significant and unforgettable moments in Ravens history. His reliability, focus, drive, resilience, and extraordinary talent made him one of the league's best kickers for over a decade. We are grateful for Justin's many contributions while playing for the Ravens. We sincerely wish him and his family the very best in this next chapter of their lives." Signed by General Manager for the Baltimore Ravens, Eric DeCosta. Folks, this is a very bad ending to a historic story. Justin Tucker will go down in history as one of the greatest kickers of all time, but he will never get the flowers that he so deserves because of the allegations that are still ongoing with him right now. Justin Tucker was accused of sexual misconduct by 16 massage therapists from 8 different spas and wellness centers within the Baltimore region area. And these all occurred from 2012 to 2016. I think they probably caught some wind of something maybe coming down from the league. And so I think the Ravens made their decision before the heat comes down. And so if you're Justin Tucker, you really can't do anything right now. You can't go out and get signed by another team. You can't go and be a coach because your name is too hot. You're tied with 16 instances of sexual misconduct. That's not good. And every day this does not get resolved is another day that makes people feel like you are guilty of these crimes. Now, I am not passing judgment on Justin Tucker. I would never do that to any person. But at the same time, this is not a good look for you. You have a Hall of Fame career. And I think because of these allegations, I don't think he will get in first try. I don't think he'll get in second try. I think it's going to take him a while before he really gets into the Hall of Fame. And it sucks because when you look at his stats, better yet, I'm going to just read the stats for you. He is an 8-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. He was a part of the 2010s All-Decade team. He holds the longest record for the longest kick in NFL history at 66 yards. He was 417 out of 468 in field goals. He has the highest field goal percentage in NFL history at 89.1%. He was a dog when it came to kicker. You knew if Justin Tucker went out on that field, most likely he's going to make that kick. There are very few instances where Justin Tucker did not make the kick. And so you will not be able to transition like how a lot of players have been able to, where they can get into the media game, or they can get into podcasting, or they can get into different spaces, different areas. You can't do that. You're literally going to have to lay low probably for at least maybe 1 or 2 years, and then maybe start to reemerge. And even then, I would do it slowly. Because right now, your name is tied to a lot of allegations, and it would be best if you just let things just die down, and maybe there'll be some resolution to this case. But it really does suck for Justin Tucker. If I'm not mistaken, I think somebody actually found Justin Tucker at a football field somewhere, and he was just working out. That sucks. He should be getting ready for the season. But he won't be able to, because you know why? I was going to say Steelers. No, he does not play for the Steelers. We have Chris Boswell. We have the Boss. But back to Justin Tucker. Justin Tucker is supposed to be preparing for this season, and he won't be able to do that. Man, that sucks. That absolutely sucks. But we do have to talk about Shemart Stewart. We do have to talk about the Bengals, because why? The Bengals are going to continue to be the Bengals. This is what Shemart Stewart says, and I quote, "I just decided to not sign those papers. I hate being on the sidelines looking at everybody else doing work," end quote. This is somebody that does not want to be a part of the Bengals. This is somebody that wants to leave. He did not want to go to the Bengals because everybody knows the Bengals do dirty work. They are not really good when it comes to business and contracts. Oh my God. Oh my God, you could not make this stuff up, man. It is only something like this would happen to the Bengals. It would happen with any other team. It would only happen to the Bengals. And you know what? They deserve it. If Shemart Stewart holds out, I think somebody will make a trade for him. I understand he's on a rookie deal, but I mean, rookie deals really aren't that expensive. Hey, Bengals, you guys got to do a better job when it comes to business. See, the Bengals to me is like, it's like going to that convenience store and you try to get like your favorite snacks or your favorite chips or your favorite drinks, and they're just jacking up the prices for no reason. Like, why is an Arizona iced tea $3 when it says 99 cents on the can? That's what the Bengals are. The Bengals are those type of people where if you ask them to go to the store to get you like a bag of ice or a bag of chips or a pack of chicken or something, and you give them money and you're thinking that you're going to get the change back, but no, they keep the change back. That's what the Bengals are. Why are you doing bad business? You don't need to do bad business. It's already bad enough that you have Trey Hendrickson upset with you guys. Now you're going to have the rookie upset with you as well? Oh, man, it's game over, man. Game over. Game over for the Bengals. If I'm Joe Burrow, I am losing it right now. I am 100% just losing it right now because I'm doing all this work in the background. I'm trying my hardest to try to keep this core together, but I can't do it because you know why? Business wants to be done in a very negative way. But the Bengals will be the Bengals. Sorry, Bengals fans, not sorry. But we do have the contract details for Matthew Stafford. So apparently, according to SpotRack, it is a 2-year, $84 million deal, which is $42 million a year. $40 million guaranteed at signing and $80 million total. But here's where things get a little bit more interesting, okay? In 2025, he has an option bonus of $24 million. Okay, cool. But let's go a little bit deeper. They split the $24 million into 4 separate $6 million bonuses. They also did that for the 2026 option bonus as well. And to add a cherry on top, 2027 and 2030 are instantly voided on the final day of the 2026 season. This is a year by year contractual structure. This is something to where, for whatever reason, if next year he wants to retire, he can retire. And it doesn't really affect them as much compared to giving, the traditional 4 years or 3 years or, 5-year deal worth a whole bunch of money, and, they'll have a whole bunch of dead cap and whatnot. They just want to do something simple. And I understand that because Matthew Stafford last year did not really look that good until the second half of the season. That first half, you really saw his age. You really saw the struggles of the offense and the defense. It just wasn't good. And so if you're Matthew Stafford, you have to be honest with yourself. If I go to the Giants, it's over for me. If I go to the Raiders, it's over for me. This is my best place to win. May I remind you, this is the same Matthew Stafford that for the longest time when he was with the Lions, they were in hell. Absolute hell. His best option was Megatron. Outside of that, he really didn't have a whole lot of weapons. But now that you're in the place of weapons, I probably would not want to leave that. I don't care how much they're trying to swindle me. Listen, I will sign for $2 million if it means that I get to stay with this great organization and I get to stay with Sean McVay, because I know, guess what? Sean McVay is going to give me some weapons. I'm still going to have Puka Nacua, and then they're going to continue to build things for me. Now, when we look at things for the Rams, though, this buys them some time. Because I think next year, they're probably going to go and get a quarterback. Now, am I saying they're going to tank? No. But what I am saying is this. I will not be surprised if their first priority is getting one of those quarterbacks next year. Because allegedly, and I mean allegedly with big air quotes, the biggest air quotes that you could think of and imagine of, the quarterback class is supposed to be better. You're going to have people like Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Lenore Sellers, Carson Beck. You're supposed to be having a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of quote-unquote better quarterbacks in next year's draft. The only person that I don't think is going to declare for the draft is Archie. And I'll go a little bit on the deep end when we get to that point. But I think the Rams probably do need to get the successor. And I think if they just let them sit under Matthew Stafford, I think it would help them out a lot compared to just, thrusting them into the fire just to see what you have in them. But I still believe that the Rams are very competitive. I still believe that the Rams can make some noise. Do I think the Rams can make it to the Super Bowl? No. But if they make a few additions to both the offense and the defense, specifically the defense, I think we may have to change our conversation. I think if the Rams get Jalen Ramsey again, we may have a problem. Just saying. I'll just leave that for you to think about and sleep on and all those different things and more. But let's get into this Nico Iamaleava situation. So this is a very confusing situation because you have one side that's saying it's about money, and then you have another side that says it's not about money. Then you have this other side that says, we were told that we wanted certain things in place for the betterment of Nico. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. But you know what? Let's just get into the meat and potatoes of everything, okay? So this is coming from Front Office Sports. Shout out to them, by the way. So here's the thing. This dates back to 2024, after Tennessee lost in the playoffs, in which Nico's reps wanted to have a conversation with head coach Josh Heupel on what Nico needs in order to be successful. He wanted reassurance that they were going to get better O-line and receiver prospects. But here's the part that I'm a little bit conflicted about. So apparently he was looking to renegotiate his NIL deal to around $4 million. And so he started to miss practice and decided to enter the transfer portal. And so Nico was called by multiple coaches to see where his status was And his statement was, and I quote, as long as they brought in the recruits he pushed for, everything was going to be okay, end quote. And so, they decide to, to get rid of him. And so Coach Hupel puts out a statement and says, and I quote, I want to thank him for everything he's done since he's gotten here as a recruit and who he was as a player and how he competed inside the building. But this is the thing that's very interesting, though. Obviously, we're moving forward as a program without him. I said it to the guys today. There's no one that's bigger than the power T. That includes me, end quote. And so time goes on, and then finally word breaks that Nico is signing with UCLA for undisclosed NIL amount. On one hand, I understand that you want better prospects, especially when it comes to offensive line and receiver prospects. I understand that. However, there is a way that you go about it. And let me explain a little bit deeper. You know that most likely your name is going to be brought up in next year's draft. And so with something like this happening, there is a chance that your draft stock is going to be severely affected. Because why would you leave the SEC to go to UCLA? When we all know that UCLA really doesn't produce a lot of prospects compared to Tennessee, where they are a factory when it comes to prospects. They at least produce maybe 10 to 15 prospects maybe every single year. Now, some of them are hits and then some of them are misses. But the fact of the matter is they produce NFL caliber players. So why wouldn't you want to stay in the SEC? Granted, I understand the NIL was intended for players to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. I understand that. However, what you cannot do is to make these types of requests and then have a hissy fit about it and then just decide to leave. You, sir, are no bigger than the school that is the University of Tennessee. No one is bigger than any school. There is no coach, there is no player, there is no anything that is bigger than the university. I don't care if you won a Heisman. I don't care if you won every single positional award that you can win in college football. You are not bigger than the school. And Tennessee just proved that. And Tennessee is probably going to be perfectly fine. Because guess what? They know that there's going to be somebody that's going to be willing to commit to Tennessee. But you, on the other hand, are going to leave a somewhat better situation to go where? To UCLA. Really? Really, dog? That's not a good idea. That's going to hurt you significantly. So now, leading into probably last year, you were probably slated to be a first round prospect. Now, people will probably talk themselves out of giving you that first round grade. They'll probably now give you a second or third or maybe fourth round grade. Players have to be mindful of their actions because that's going to carry them into the league. We just saw that with Shedeur Sanders. Had Shedeur Sanders governed himself accordingly and a little bit more professionally, he probably would have been drafted in the first round. But what you cannot do is go on this media run with your daddy and say, we're not going to take interviews with this team. We're not going to take interviews with that team. And we're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do all of that. Can't do that. You have to be on board with the process. And if you are not on board with the process, guess what? People are not going to rock with you. They would rather see you fall or become an undrafted free agent before they give you a chance. We have seen that multiple times. And this was the very thing that Nick Saban was talking about on why he decided to retire from coaching. Because he realized that once the NIL was in place, I can't do my job. Because you know what we're going to be talking about? Money. Instead of talking about how can I get better so that I can be a first round prospect, a second round prospect, or a third round prospect. And so that's going to jeopardize a lot of coaches moving forward because why? These players are talking about money before they even talk about committing. And granted, There are some people you may deserve a little bit of money, but I'm sorry. I'm not giving you a $6 or $7 million NIL deal. I'm not giving you a boatload of money for no reason. No, because you need to prove that you belong on this field. Because guess what? Just how you feel that you are a 5-star prospect, there are at least 2 or 3 other 5-star prospects that can either do the same thing that you're doing or even better than what you're doing. That would be willing to just take less just to be on the field. At some point, the NCAA is going to have to step in and they're going to have to add regulations to this NIL thing because it's starting to get out of hand and you don't want that. But, hey, let's see how the season goes. Maybe Nico proves us wrong, and I hope he does. I really do. But going to UCLA is not a good idea because why? Your money is not going to stretch as long when you're in California, one of the places that has some of the highest tax rates in the entire country. Everybody knows that living in the South or doing anything in the South is a little bit more easier than going to the West Coast. Because why? The taxes are a little bit lower. The price of living is a little bit lower. Your money is able to stretch a little bit longer in the South compared to on the West Coast. But hey, what do I know, right? But let's get into this whole conundrum of players wanting to play with legends numbers. So Abdul Carter was one of the notable players that was reaching out to the team's respective legends and try to ask for their permission to wear their numbers. So he asked LT and he also asked Phil Simms. LT said hell no. Phil Simms basically said you could have wore it, but my family intervened and so it's a no for me, dog. Better yet, let me read the quotes that they put out. LT said this, and I quote, "I know he would love to wear that number, but hey, I think it's retired. Get another number. I don't care if it's 00 and then make it famous." End quote. This is what Phil Simms says. And I quote, "I told some of my friends and people around me I let him have it in a second. Can you just help? Can you just help it a little or make it better?" You gotta love Phil Simms. That's a great response. That's a great response. End quote. And he's right. He's right. But guess what? You do not have that right to ask to use people's numbers that are already established. Why do that? Because guess what? The minute that you do that, your expectations are going to be their expectations. So if you were to get LT's number, if you do not have a career similar to LT, then you have failed that number. You have tarnished that number. Same thing with Phil Simms. If you do not do what he did within his career, then guess what? You have tarnished the number. No player under any circumstance should be allowed to wear a legend's number. I don't care what you did in college. I don't care how many accolades you have. I don't care how many sacks you have. I don't care how high you were drafted. I don't care about none of that. You should not be allowed to wear a legend's number. That's like, for instance, I don't know, Trenton Simpson trying to wear Ray Lewis's jersey. That's like Kyle Hamilton trying to wear Ed Reed's. Or, who can I think of? Jared Verse wanting to wear Aaron Donald's number. No. There are just certain numbers that are just off limits. Under no circumstance. That's, for instance, Kenny Pickett wanting to wear Ben Roethlisberger's jersey when he was with the Steelers. No. Hell no. That's like Drake May trying to wear Tom Brady's number. It's a hell no. You cannot do that under any circumstance. I don't care if you ask. I don't care how much money you put up. I don't care what you do. You cannot and will not wear that jersey. That jersey is retired for a reason. Because they had a historical, legendary career. And if you do not do that, then guess what? I just said it. You tarnished the number. Cannot do that. That's just like how, is it Jalen? It's either Jalen Walker or Michael Williams, one of the two. Whoever got drafted by the Falcons. He's wearing Julio Jones's number. The Julio Jones. future first ballot Hall of Famer Julio Jones' number. Why? Why is he allowed to wear his number? In no way should nobody be allowed to wear Julio Jones' number. Man, please, y'all gonna make me lose my mind. But we do have to talk about something a little bit more serious, and that is the White House proposed budget that includes eliminating federal funding for traumatic brain research and education. So here's the thing. The CDC is facing a $3.5 billion deficit. And so they're going to have to make major budget cuts. Now, here's the thing. $8.2 million is dedicated for brain injury research and public education on the dangers of concussions. Now, Dr. Owens, who is a part of the board for the Brain Injury Association of America and is also a brain injury specialist, says, and I quote, the budget cuts would roll back decades of progress, end quote. Now, one of the programs that are targeted for this potential cut is Heads Up, which is a concussion prevention program for youth and high school coaches and athletic trainers. Congress first approved traumatic brain injury research and education in 1996. This is one of those programs that you just do not cut. And the reason why I say that is because the NFL has made so much progress within the last few years on bringing more awareness to concussions and brain injuries, that by making this move, you would eliminate all the progress that they've made so far. Remember, there was a point in time where you could go head up with somebody, and if you had a little concussion, they wasn't going to pay you no mind. But now they had to take action, especially when you had people in, for instance, Aaron Hernandez's brain was shown. And you saw the impact of all those blows to the head. If you've never seen it, go on Google and look up Aaron Hernandez's brain and compare it to a normal picture of a brain. It looks sick. It looks horrible. Better yet, I'm going to give you another brain that you need to look up. Mike Webster. He used to play for the Steelers. He was the center for the Steelers. Look up his brain. Those two brains alone are severe cases of CTE. You have to make sure that you do not get rid of this program, because if you get rid of this program, it is going to cause a lot of parents to not want to have their to not have their kids go into football, because they know the risks that come with playing football. All it takes is just one hit, to be honest with you folks. One good hit and your kid could have CTE or anything crazy. But with things being as futuristic as it has been within the last few years, and how people have been able to roll out different helmet models that help lower the risk of concussions, and different tackling techniques, and just overall more safer game of football, you've seen a decrease in concussions. But by eliminating this, you may see an uptick in concussions and more brain injuries. I don't know about this, White House. I probably would not look at this. Now, if I'm the NFL, on the other hand, I would be in direct communication with the White House to figure out, hey, what can we do to keep this program going? How much money will it take, and how long will the money keep the program going? Because if this is eliminated, it is going to have a catastrophic effect on Pee-wee football, college football, and professional football. And I don't think people want that. But to wrap things up, we got grades, folks. That's right, grades for the AFC North. Yes. But this one's going to be a little bit different, okay? I'm going to incorporate stats, both offensive and defensive snaps, so that I can try to make a correlation between the draft picks and whatnot. So here it goes for the Browns, okay? Their positions of need were quarterback, running back, tackle, defensive line. So, of course, first round they got Mason Graham. Second round they got Carson Schwessinger and Quinson Junkins. Third round they got Harold Fanning Jr. and Dylan Gabriel. Fourth round they got Dylan Sampson. And then fifth round they got Shedeur Sanders. So you can cross off quarterback, you can cross off running back, you can cross off defensive line. Good. The only thing that they didn't address, to me, that I feel like they should have addressed was tackle. Just being honest here, but that's just me because I love the offensive line. I understand that the offensive line play a very foundational role in a lot of things. But when we look at their team stats, however, they were the 19th ranked defense last year. They averaged 25.6 points that were allowed per game, 342.1 yards allowed per game, 5.6 yards allowed per play. They allowed 48 touchdowns, and they had a 38.4 quarterback pressure percentage with 226 quarterback pressures. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's break it down a little bit more. So they have the 12th passing defense, which allowed 212.4 passing yards per game, 6.5 passing yards per play, 26 passing touchdowns that were allowed. Let's go a little bit more deeper. They had the 21st run defense, which allowed 129.7 rushing yards per game, 4.5 rushing yards per play, and 70 rushes of 10 plus yards or more, with a run stuff rate at 22.5%. Now, granted, Mason Graham will definitely help out on the defensive line, but I still feel like that's not enough. I feel like they probably should have double dipped at defensive line. And the reason why I say that is because outside of Myles Garrett, who else can you rely on? Because most likely Mason Graham will probably get double teamed. So you're going to need somebody else that can come in and create a lot of pressure. Do I think this is a major upgrade? No. Do I feel like they may have reached for Mason Graham? Just a little bit. I think if they drafted Mason Graham maybe with the 10th or 11th pick, okay, fine. That's a good spot. But drafting him as high as they did, I'm a little bit skeptical about that personally. But only time will tell. Now, when we look at on their offensive side, okay, they have the 28th ranked offense. They averaged 15.2 points per game, 300.8 yards per game, and 4.6 yards per play, as well as 27 touchdowns. Let's break it down a little bit more. They had the 22nd passing offense, which averaged 206.2 passing yards per game, 4.8 passing yards per play, and 19 passing touchdowns. Okay. Average, I would say. Now they had the 29th rushing offense, which averaged 94.6 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, 8 touchdowns, and 34 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Overall, I would give them a B. I'm not saying this is a dynamic draft. I'm not saying this is a game-changing draft. I'm not saying any of those things. I think this is a good meat and potatoes type of draft. And sometimes you need those type of drafts in order to build a great team. It's not always going to be a bunch of, high flash and oohs and ahs when it comes to your drafting. A lot of times it's a lot of meat and potatoes type of drafts that carry you on into, becoming a true contender. And that's perfectly fine. I think Quinshon Judkins, I think that's a good pick. I think Harold Fanning Jr. paired up with David Njoku, I think that's a good pick as well. Mason Graham, I think that's also a good pick as well. I just feel like where he was drafted is a little bit controversial. I feel like Shedeur is a good pick as well because here's the thing. Shedeur Sanders, outside of all the distractions and whatnot, he was a good quarterback. He's not the... How can I say this? You know what? Bump it. I'll just say it. He's not like every other black quarterback. Because we all know most black quarterbacks, they're athletic, they can run real fast. They're just a dual threat. That's not Shedeur. Shedeur is an old school drop back, sit in the pocket type of quarterback. And that's perfectly fine. You can still have a very successful career in the NFL. He's very precise with his throwing. And I think it's only going to get better now that he's in the league and now that he's in a situation where you have someone like Kevin Stefanski who has worked with multiple quarterbacks. I think this will work significantly well, but only time will tell. Now, do I think the offense will improve significantly? Yes, I think the run game will definitely get better. I think the passing game will definitely get better. The passing defense, I'm a little bit skeptical about because they really didn't make a whole lot of additions there. The run defense, I do think got a little bit better. Not significantly, but just a little bit better. Just a tad better, to be specific. Now let's go to the Bengals. Man, maybe I'll change their grade at this point. I might just want to give them an F at this point because this is bad. So their positions of need were defensive back, edge, D tackle, linebacker, interior offensive line. So they drafted Shemart Stewart, Demetrius Knight Jr., Dylan Fairchild, Barrett Carter, Jalen Rivers, and Taj Brooks. Okay, not bad. And so when we look at their team stats and whatnot, they had the 9th ranked offense, which averaged 27.8 points per game, 365.5 yards per game, 5.8 yards per play, and 54 touchdowns. Let's go a little bit deeper. They had the number 1 passing offense at 272.9 passing yards per game, 6.6 passing yards per play, and 43 passing touchdowns. Not bad. But they had the 30th rushing offense, which averaged 92.6 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, 8 touchdowns, and 34 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. The run game really wasn't that strong for them last year, and you can definitely tell that they missed Joe Mixon significantly. And when we switch things over to the defense, however, they had the 25th ranked defense, which averaged 25.5 points allowed per game, 348.3 yards allowed per game, 5.4 yards per play allowed, 50 touchdowns allowed, and a 31.8 quarterback pressure percentage. It's not really that good. And we all know why their defense wasn't that good. Okay, we don't need to go on the soapbox. But when we go a little bit deeper into this, okay, they had the 21st passing defense, which averaged 223.5 passing yards allowed per game, 6.2 passing yards allowed per play, 30 passing touchdowns allowed. That is not good, folks. And you can tell that they missed their defensive backs because they don't have anybody in the backfield that people are afraid of. It's open season in the backfield. Now let's go a little bit more deeper. They had the 19th run defense, which allowed 20 rushing touchdowns, 124.8 rushing yards per game, 4.4 rushing yards per play, and allowed 54 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. I would give them a C minus. Because on one hand, yes, you did address defensive line and linebacker. Yes, I'm not going to take that away from you. However, you did not address defensive back and you did not address interior offensive line like how you should have. Let's be real here, folks. As great as Shemart Stewart was at the combine, he is still a question mark. Is he an end? Is he interior? What exactly is Shemart Stewart in the NFL? And I think him being drafted to the Bengals was probably the worst decision possibly because he doesn't have a clear path of development compared to if he went, for instance, to the Eagles, to the Steelers, to places that have a reputation of developing really productive pass rushers. So on one hand, I understand that you wanted to work on the defensive line a little bit, especially at edge, because he could either be the replacement for Trey Hendrickson or he can be the partner with Trey Hendrickson. But I'm still very skeptical about that move. Demetrius Knight, I feel like that's more a replacement for Jermaine Pratt or for the other middle linebacker as well. Barrett Carter, same thing. Taj Brooks, I feel like that was a good move as well because they definitely want to work on the run game because I understand that you do have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I get that. But you also want to rely more on the run game. Because we all saw when they had Joe Mixon, that run game was significantly better. They were able to stretch the field out a little bit more compared to just throwing it to, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins all the time. Just saying. But I gave them a C minus. I feel like they definitely could have done better. I feel like they should have probably addressed either DB, edge, D tackle, or interior offensive line in the first round. Or they should have done it in free agency. But all in all, this was not a good draft class for the Bengals. And especially with everything going on now with Demetrius Knight and Shemart Stewart, it really doesn't look that good either. Now let's go on to the Steelers. So with the Steelers, their positions of need were quarterback, corner, defensive line, running back. So the first round, Derek Harmon. They did not have a second round pick. So the third round, they had Caleb Johnson. Their fourth round, they had Jack Sawyer. Fifth round, they had Wyatt Black. Sixth round, they had Will Howard. And then seventh round, they had Carson Bruner and Dante Kent. Now, when we look at their team stats, however, they were the 23rd ranked offense in averaging 22.4 points per game, 319.4 yards per game, 5 yards per play, and 35 touchdowns. Let's go a little bit deeper. 27th in pass offense, and they averaged 192 passing yards per game, 6 passing yards per play, and 21 passing touchdowns. They were the 11th rushing offense and averaged 127.4 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, 14 touchdowns, and 64 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Now let's shift over to the defense. They averaged 20.4 points allowed per game, 326.7 yards allowed per game, 5.4 yards per play allowed, 37 touchdowns allowed, and a 33.8 quarterback pressure percentage. They were the 25th in passing defense at 228 passing yards allowed per game, 6.2 passing yards allowed per play, and 23 passing touchdowns allowed. They were 6th in run defense and allowed 14 rushing touchdowns, 98.7 rushing yards per game, 4.1 rushing yards per play, and allowed 43 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. We already knew that the Steelers were most likely going to bolster up the defensive line at some point, especially with the whole ending of the season and Derrick Henry doing what he did. We all knew that they were going to make sure that defensive line was going to be better. And so they did that, and they double dipped, which I definitely expected, in getting Derek Harmon and Wyatt Black, which isn't bad. It's not bad at all. This isn't a sexy type of draft class. This isn't a dynamic draft class. This is a, once again, meat and potatoes type of draft class. Derek Harmon, meat and potatoes. Caleb Johnson, meat and potatoes. Jack Sawyer. That is the one pick that I'm a little bit on the fence about, and let me explain why. Because I feel like with that pick, if the intentions were still to get rid of George Pickens, then I would have used that pick to get the replacement for George Pickens. So then that way you won't be in the situation in which the Steelers are in now, where you have to go out and you have to get another receiver. But outside of that, I think everything else was pretty good. I feel like Carson Bruner is going to be a really good special teams player. I feel like Wyatt Black is going to be a really good foundational piece. I feel like Will Howard has a lot of upside to his game. But the one thing out of all of these guys is this. All of them were team captains for their respective teams. Put up a bookmark on that for me, please. Now, for a grade, I would say a B. Because you addressed corner, even though I feel like they should have addressed it a little bit higher. You addressed defensive line twice. You addressed running back, and you addressed quarterback. So you addressed all of those positions, which was actually really good. I cannot complain about this. As much as I want to complain about it, I cannot complain about it because this was a meat and potatoes type of draft. Let's end it with the Ravens. So the positions of need with the Ravens. Guard, edge, safety, wide receiver. So their first round pick, Malachi Starks. Second round, Mike Green, the Green Machine as I call him. Third round, Emory Jones Jr. Fourth round, Teddy Buchanan, if I'm not mistaken. Fifth round, Carson Vincent. And then sixth round, they had B. Hall Cone, Tyler Loop, LaJohntay Wester, and Aeneas Peebles, which I was very high on Aeneas Peebles. And it definitely sucks that we weren't able to get him. But it's okay. So when we look at their team stats, they were the number one ranked offense, and they averaged 30.5 points per game, 424.9 yards per game, 6.8 yards per play, and 62 touchdowns. Now, when we break this down into the offense and whatnot, you're going to say offense and defense, I don't know why, but when we break this down into the passing and run offense, they were the 7th best passing offense, and they averaged 237.4 passing yards per game, 8.1 passing yards per play, and 41 passing touchdowns. And they had the number one rushing offense as well, at 187.6 rushing yards per game, 5.8 rushing yards per play, 21 rushing touchdowns, and 89 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Folks, this offense was unstoppable, but unfortunately did choke. Sorry. Now, when we go to the defense, however, they were a top 10 defense, and they averaged 21.2 points per game. They allowed 324.2 yards per game, 5.2 yards per play, and then they allowed 39 touchdowns and had a 31.4 quarterback pressure percentage. Now, they were 31st in passing defense and allowed 244.1 passing yards per game, 6.1 passing yards per play, and 27 passing touchdowns. They were the number one rushing defense, in which they allowed 12 rushing touchdowns, 80.1 rushing yards per game, 3.6 rushing yards per play, and allowed 25 rushes of 10 plus yards or more. Folks, this was a home run of a draft class. I feel like Malachi Starks, great pick. Simply because you did not have to trade up to get him. He just fell into your lap, which is great because there was a lot of speculation that the Ravens may have to trade up to get someone like a Malachi Starks or Nick Ward. But for Malachi Starks to just fall down to the Ravens, that's actually great. Mike Green, he was slated to be a first rounder, but because of off-field allegations, that's why he fell down into the second round. But still, I feel like that is a great pick because to me, he's pass rusher one. I feel like he is the best pass rusher because I feel like he has the skill set to be somewhat on the lines of like where TJ Watt may be. Just saying. You can hate me, love me, whatever. Don't care. He has the upside to be great. And I think he's in the best situation possible. Emory Jones Jr., he has positional flexibility because he can double at tackle and guard. Teddy Buchanan, that's a good special teams type of pick. Same thing as Carson Vincent, as well as B. Hall Cone. Tyler Luke, he's going to be the replacement for Justin Tucker. LaJohntay Wester, that could be special teams. Aeneas Peebles, that bolsters up the defensive line even more. Overall, when we look at this entire division as a whole, everybody made significant moves to bolster up their defensive line. The Browns used their first round pick to do it. The Steelers did it as well, and even the Bengals. But I feel like as a whole, everybody's number one goal was to prevent the Ravens from doing what they did this past season, which was basically just run amok over everybody. Now, is this probably the best move to make? I don't really know. But the fact of the matter is, for an entire division to all want to make at least one investment into defensive line definitely says a lot. But we still have a few more divisions that we have to talk about, and stay tuned because we will be talking about them. But I'm going to end this episode here. If you guys like what you're listening, please make sure you guys leave a 5-star on anywhere and everywhere that you listen to podcasts, okay? We are available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to access those other places where we are available, you go on our RSS feed page, and then you will have access to all those places where you can listen to us. Now, for my YouTube people, Football Junkies Pod, okay? Football Junkies Pod. When you go on our YouTube, we have a link tree. You click on that link tree and it'll take you to anywhere and everywhere that we have Football Junkies content. Now, make sure you guys leave a review. Make sure you guys leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on my grades. Let me know your thoughts on everything that has happened so far in the league right now. I know things are a little bit slow, but hopefully things will pick up sooner than later. What else am I forgetting? Make sure you follow us on Instagram, football_junkies pod, okay? Football_junkies pod. Junkies pod is now what? It is together, not spaced. Okay, it is together, not spaced. Football_junkies pod. Now make sure you guys follow us on the TikTok as well, Football Junkies Pod. Football Junkies Pod. The link to the YouTube is located in our bio as well. So Definitely going to make sure I got to put out some clips. I know I have a lot of clips that I have to put out, especially from the Divisional Rodeo series and a few other episodes in between those as well. What else am I forgetting? Follow me on Twitter. Well, not Twitter, but it was formerly Twitter, but now it's X. I don't know. But just follow me on X, GM Kale. Okay, GM Kale. GMKAILE. It's the same thing with Blue Sky as well. GM Kale. KAILE. As always, I hope I gave you guys the fix that you guys need. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of one of the greatest football podcasts that you can listen to on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. This is your GM Kel signing out. Peace and love. Later.